who took advantage of summer conditioning? Who passed the eye test in day one, Brent Hubbs?
Well, those linebackers for sure. I mean, Arian Carter and Jeremiah Telander were. I mean, they look like upperclassmen running around out there. So they caught my eye. Look, Dominic Bailey looked as good as he's ever looked in a Tennessee uniform. Running around on the practice field. Those two jumped out at me. I think Ethan Davis looks the part. I think Ethan Davis may be the most important freshman newcomer on this team for this fall, because I think he has to play. I don't think it's a situation where necessarily you're going to try to ease him into it. I think he's got to be ready from the jump, given their lack of depth at the tight end position. I think I said that in a 2-minute drill, and I'll probably beat that point home a little bit. I think he's really vital for Tennessee. I thought he looked the part. I mean, overall, Rob, Austin, you guys jump in, and I know there's all this talk about 2 years ago and all that stuff. I mean, they lost 30 guys 2 years ago. They should look different. But even to the casual observer out there, the buzz on Wednesday on the practice field was it's a better-looking football team, and I think we all agree upon that, right?
100%. Rob, I mean, for years and years and years, everybody wrote about the strength coach. Nobody writes about Kurt. And I don't know if there's been a strength coach do as good a job since John Stuckey. I mean, maybe Johnny Long, because he, kind of that same family. But I mean, like, this guy has transformed bodies better than anybody on this campus in a long time. I mean, not just the freshmen, but I mean, the guys that have been here. I mean, everybody looks drastically different. They're putting on the right kind of weight. It's not like they're getting like fatty muscles, like they're staying lean but being ripped. I mean, it's really impressive to kind of see some of the transformations.
Yeah, I mean, and I think you can see it in a lot of positions. I mean, and a lot of it's young. I mean, who knows what kind of impact it's going to make. But just like Hubbard's talking about the eye test, you can see the edges with Pearson Josephs being a year in the program. Caleb Herring looks like a long-limbed SEC edge guy. I mean, Dante, you don't think about receiver being a physical position. I mean, Dante Thornton is a dude. I mean, that guy jumps out at me. Like Hubbard said, Ethan Davis. I mean, Okoye is, just incredibly raw. But I mean, he's another guy that jumps out at you physically. I mean, Elijah Herring, Caleb Perry, a year in the weight room. Those two guys look like, thumpers, SEC linebackers. I mean, and you can just keep on going down the list.
Khalifa Keith looked good.
Yep.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, Cam Seldon knew it was big. Keith, I think everybody thought, okay, that's kind of a bowling ball, but dude, he's ripped. Yeah. I mean, he's been doing body by Jake or something over the offseason. I mean, he looks drastically different.
Tyree Weathersby as well. Of course, he wasn't here in spring. We'll move on in a moment, but going back to Emmanuel Okoye, day one, it was a late signee, wasn't here in spring and all that. Austin, I just looked at him first time I've seen him in person this weekend. He just looked like an edge guy to me. I know he's playing tight end, and they'll figure it out down the line, but he's long. He looked like an edge guy to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's going to be the natural reaction because, he was labeled as an edge / tight end, right?
Yeah.
And Tennessee needs the help at tight end now because as Hubbs specifically, and I think astutely said, Ethan Davis and his importance just because Tennessee's so thin there. But you never know when you may have to turn to an Emmanuel Okoye in some form or fashion. I mean, probably not. I mean, just because he's so super raw and they can enroll with a couple of those guys that are walk-ons turned, serviceable guys ahead of him. But, still, I mean, he is a freak athlete. And, if he can pick up the route running, if he can pick up the ability to catch the ball with his hands, I mean, who knows? I mean, he's definitely got a certain look to him. And I think you're right. Everybody's going to look at him and go, oh, the guy comes off the edge.
Well, we'll go to you with this one. Go ahead, Brent.
The interesting thing about Okoye, he put on a football for the first time about 6 or 7 months ago. I mean, the guy's essentially never played football. I mean, this was his first time practicing on a field with hash marks in his career because he's only played football for about 6 months. So, I mean, the learning curve for him outside of the physical stuff is as drastic as we've seen anybody have a learning curve coming into a football program. I mean, Jakob Johnson played American football. He played a year of high school football. even though he was a part of NFL Europe over there. And Konstantin Ritzman was an exchange student who played a year of American football. This has not been the case with Okoye. So there's a huge, steep learning curve for him mentally. We'll see how quickly he adjusts to that stuff as they dive into football here. I'd imagine his head's swimming big time this week.
It's like when we brought Grant Ramey from 24/7 to On3. I mean, there's just a learning curve.
Someone in
He's
the
teaching us every day.
For 2 weeks in a row is asked the question, how much of a blessing is it to work with Grant Ramey every single day? I love the persistence. Grant told me to say that it's the worst thing in the world and move on. So.
It's a huge blessing. The best is when Grant pulls that dry sense of humor out, like, and he kind of gives you that kind of smirk, like, I got you,